ParaNorman is a film that came out last year. It is a stop-motion film, and it is some of the most advanced stop-motion you have ever seen. The story is about a boy named Norman who lives in a small town and can see dead people. His family thinks he's weird. He doesn't have very many friends. He gets picked on. The town is under a curse that was put on it by a witch, and one day this creepy old man comes up to Norman and says that he's passing the role of keeping the curse off of the town to Norman. Hilarity and horror ensue. The film was made for around $60 million and just barely made its money back, but it's interesting to me that more films aren't made this way, because all told, $60 million is a pretty small budget for an animated film. A DreamWorks animated movie like Kung Fu Panda is made for about $150 million. I'll put a link in the description to some of the making of videos that the company has put on YouTube. The amount of effort that gets put into making these shots is truly mind-blowing. They would build a very complicated metal skeleton. They would build a cast for the body. They would mold those body parts, and then on top of the base body and the clothing, they would make a face for every single expression that the character makes. And the process of moving the character was just taking a picture, moving the character, taking a picture, moving the character. And on top of the in-camera animation, there was computer animation for a lot of the special effects shots in this film. One of the really cool things about this movie was that it was shot on a Canon 5D, which is a camera that only costs a couple $1,000s. So if you have the patience and the materials to work with stop motion, making a film like this would not be terribly expensive for an amateur filmmaker. The writing in this movie was fantastic. There was this really dark, ironic sense of humor, which I found hilarious. And then on top of that, the movie has a really big heart, which I found really surprising. It's interesting, the last movie that we reviewed, Bully, had a very similar message to this film, which is that when people are put in situations where they're made powerless, when people are bullied, they come back and become the bully themselves, and that becomes a cycle, and it's a process that has to stop with an individual making a choice. Maybe I'm reading a little too much into the movie, but I found an almost biblical theme going on in the story. In the Bible, it talks about the curse of sin, and every year the Hebrew priests would have to go into the temple, apply the blood of a cow to the altar, and that would keep God from judging the sins of the people for another year. In this movie, there's something like this. The curse is something that has to be fought back every year by the people who are able to talk to ghosts. These mediums have to read from a book in order to banish the witch for another year. In this metaphor, Norman is almost like Jesus in that he's able to finally end the curse. Now, as I said, I may be reading too much into this, but if this is what the filmmaker's going for, it's very interesting that they chose to give this story the macabre genre that they gave to it. Because I know, coming from a family where I wasn't allowed to watch things like The Nightmare Before Christmas growing up, that my parents would never have let me watch this when I was a kid. And I don't know if I would let my kids watch this either, as much as I loved this movie. There are moments in this movie where it's genuinely scary. I loved the beginning of the movie and the end of the movie. I did feel like it sagged a little bit in the middle. It just felt like it got a little bit too long at some parts. It could have been snappier, maybe there could have been a few more jokes or a few more scares. But any complaints I had were more than made up for by the ending of the movie. In one of the final scenes where Norman finally confronts the witch and the theme of the movie is sort of handed to you, you realize that the filmmakers have been taking you on this amazing ride so that when this moment finally happens, it's all worth it. I'm a little bummed that this movie did so poorly in box offices, because I don't know when we're going to see another movie like this. This is the kind of movie that I want to see when I go see a kid's movie, and the kind that we so rarely get. If you're a fan of comedy and horror movies like Shaun of the Dead or Zombieland, you'll probably really enjoy ParaNorman. There's this very fine line you tread when you make a kid's movie between making something that is pandering to children, something that adults won't really want to go see, and making a movie that's just a cartoon movie for adults. One of the things that I really appreciate about ParaNorman is that it dares to tread this line. There are some genuinely scary moments in this film, and the humor can be really dark and ironic at times. This movie, if you're comfortable with letting your kids watch the scary zombie type stuff, really is something that both the kids and the adults can enjoy and get something out of. My name is Steven Anderson. Thanks for watching, have a beautiful day, and don't forget to be awesome.